Dr. Kim Soo-jin floated weightlessly in the observation station's control room, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that would have seemed like magic to humans just 50 years ago. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, completely invisible to alien sensors while maintaining perfect surveillance capabilities. Built into a hollow asteroid and powered by zero-point energy extractors, it had watched over Neptune's orbit for 3 decades without detection. The quantum receivers hummed softly as they intercepted communications from across the galaxy. Every transmission from the 3 galactic superpowers was automatically decoded, translated, and filed in Earth's vast intelligence database. Soo-jin had spent most of her adult life in this silent outpost, watching civilizations rise and fall while humanity remained hidden in the shadows. Through the reinforced viewing port, she could see Neptune's pale blue surface rotating slowly below. Beyond that, the outer reaches of the solar system appeared completely empty to any alien observer. They had no idea that dozens of similar stations were scattered throughout the asteroid belt, each one a technological masterpiece disguised as space debris. Lieutenant Park Min-ho straightened in his chair as another alert chimed on his console. His young face showed the same mixture of excitement and frustration that all the observers felt when alien scouts passed through their territory. These encounters happened regularly, sometimes monthly, as the galaxy's major powers sent automated probes to catalog primitive worlds for future exploitation. The probe was hegemony design, sleek and predatory like everything their military produced. It swept through the outer system with mechanical precision, its sensors probing for signs of advanced civilization. Radio waves, electromagnetic signatures, quantum fluctuations, anything that might indicate a species worth conquering or enslaving. Soo-jin watched the probe's scan patterns with professional interest. The hegemony had improved their detection technology since the last visit, but they were still looking for the wrong things. They expected developing civilizations to broadcast their presence through crude radio signals or primitive nuclear emissions. They never thought to look for the subtle gravitational anomalies created by hidden installations, or the carefully masked energy signatures of advanced fusion reactors. The probe completed its scan and began transmitting its findings back to hegemony space. Another negative report, another dismissal of Sol System as uninteresting. The automated message would be filed away in some alien database, marking Earth as a low-priority target for eventual harvesting when the hegemony needed more slave worlds. Park Min-ho shook his head in disgust as the probe disappeared into hyperspace. He had joined the observation corps straight from the academy, eager to protect humanity from alien threats. Instead, he spent his days watching those same aliens treat his homeworld like livestock waiting for slaughter. Soo-jin understood his frustration. Every member of the observation network struggled with the same conflict between duty and desire for action. They possessed technology that could easily destroy any alien vessel, weapons that could cripple entire fleets, but their orders were absolute: observe, record, and remain hidden at all costs. The strategy made perfect sense from Earth's perspective. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel through a completely different technological path than the established galactic powers. While they relied on crude warp drives that tore holes in space-time, humans had mastered quantum folding techniques that allowed instantaneous travel without any detectable signature. This technological advantage, combined with 30 years of careful observation, had given humanity an unprecedented understanding of galactic politics and military capabilities. They knew the exact location of every hegemony fortress world, every consortium trade route, and every collective mind colony. More importantly, they understood the weaknesses inherent in each civilization's approach to warfare and governance. The 3 galactic powers had grown complacent through centuries of dominance. They fought each other in predictable patterns, their tactics unchanged for generations. Meanwhile, humanity had been designing countermeasures for every weapon system, every defensive strategy, every political structure they might eventually face. High Admiral Vextar stood before the massive viewport of his command dreadnought, watching the pale green surface of Kepler 442b rotate beneath him. The planet had once been home to the Kellery, a peaceful species of artists and philosophers who created beautiful crystal sculptures that sang in harmony with stellar winds. Now their cities lay in ruins, their survivors working in orbital mining, platforms to extract rare metals for hegemony warships. The destruction of Kalari civilization had taken exactly 17 hours. Vextar remembered it well because it had been disappointingly easy. Their defensive grid had collapsed after the first bombardment, and their population had surrendered rather than watch their cultural centers burn. Typical behavior for weak species who valued beauty over strength. His flagship, the Eternal Conquest, stretched over 2 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Around it, a fleet of 300. Vessels maintained patrol patterns above the conquered world. Each ship bore the Crimson Star of Hegemony Authority, a symbol that struck fear into civilizations across this entire spiral arm. The bridge bustled with activity as officers coordinated the systematic exploitation of Kalari resources. Cargo, transports loaded with precious metals, departed regularly for hegemony core worlds, while prison ships carried skilled Kalari workers to construction projects throughout the Empire. It was a well-practiced routine that had been repeated on hundreds of worlds over the past 3 millennia. Sub-Commander Kralvex approached with a data tablet containing routine sector reports. As Vextar's primary aide, he filtered through thousands of intelligence updates daily, highlighting only items that required the Admiral's personal attention. Most reports were tediously predictable. Tribute collections proceeding on schedule, resistance movements crushed, new species discovered and catalogued for future conquest. The hegemony's dominance rested on overwhelming military superiority and absolute ruthlessness. Any species that showed the slightest hint of advanced technology was immediately targeted for preemptive strikes. Those who submitted were allowed to survive as tributary states, while those who resisted were wiped from existence as examples to others. This strategy had worked flawlessly for 3,000 years. The galaxy's other major powers, the Consortium and Collective, understood their place in the established order. The Consortium focused on trade and commerce, skimming profits from hegemony-controlled territories, while carefully avoiding direct military confrontation. The Collective used their psychic abilities to maintain stability among subject populations, reading minds to identify potential rebels before they could act. Vextar had personally overseen the conquest of 47 worlds during his century of service. Each victory had followed the same pattern: overwhelming force applied swiftly and brutally, followed by systematic resource extraction and population control. The galaxy's weaker species had learned not to resist because resistance meant annihilation. Sub-Commander Kralvex cleared his throat politely, drawing Vextar's attention to a particular section of the intelligence report. Solar system designations scrolled past on the tablet screen, most marked with standard classifications like primitive agriculture or early industrial development. These worlds would be harvested eventually, when the hegemony needed additional labor forces or raw materials. One entry caught Kralvex's attention because of its unusual longevity in the database. The Sol system had been under periodic observation for several decades, with scout probes reporting the same findings repeatedly. The third planet showed signs of a developing technological civilization, but their advancement level remained frustratingly static. The species called themselves humans, and they appeared to be following a typical technological development path. Chemical rocket propulsion, electromagnetic communication networks, and primitive nuclear energy suggested they might become useful as a client species within a few centuries. However, their progress seemed remarkably slow compared to most emerging civilizations. Vextar scanned the report with practiced indifference. The humans had achieved basic spaceflight and established a few settlements on nearby celestial bodies, but nothing that suggested military potential. Their largest spacecraft were crude, fusion-powered vessels that would be helpless against even the hegemony's lightest patrol ships. The quantum communication array at Earth Command received the emergency transmission at 14:23 Universal Time. The message was brief but devastating. Proxima colony under attack. Hegemony forces overwhelming defenses. 10,000 souls lost. They knew we were here. President Lee Da-hai was in a budget meeting when her security chief burst through the door. The color drained from her face as she read the preliminary report. Proxima Centauri, humanity's first and most secret extrasolar colony, had been discovered and destroyed by a routine hegemony patrol. Worse yet, the aliens had broadcast the massacre across their military networks as a warning to other primitive species. Within 30 minutes, the Emergency Council convened in the deepest levels of the Cheyenne Mountain complex. The holographic display showed real-time footage captured by hidden surveillance drones orbiting Proxima Centauri. Lee Da-hai watched, in horror, as hegemony warships systematically destroyed the colony's agricultural domes, residential sectors, and the small shipyard where humans had been secretly constructing their first deep space vessels. The colonists had lived on Proxima B for 20 years, building a thriving community of scientists, engineers, and their families. Children who had never seen Earth played in pressurized parks, while their parents worked to establish humanity's first foothold among the stars. Now all that remained were expanding clouds of superheated plasma where homes and dreams had existed. Moments before, Admiral Cho Hyun-woo stood at the head of the briefing table, his weathered face showing the strain of decades spent preparing for this moment. As commander of the Galactic Observation Network, he had overseen the construction and deployment of 47 hidden monitoring stations throughout alien space. Each installation was a masterpiece of stealth technology, completely invisible to alien sensors while maintaining perfect surveillance of their activities. The Admiral activated the main display, showing a three-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Dozens of pulsing dots appeared, each representing a human observation post embedded within or near major alien installations. Some stations orbited the hegemony's core worlds, others monitored consortium trade routes, and several kept watch over collective mind colonies. For 30 years, we've been the galaxy's best-kept secret, Cho explained to the assembled council members. We've watched their military exercises, recorded their communications, and mapped every weakness in their defenses. The hegemony thinks they destroyed a primitive outpost, but they've actually triggered the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. The footage from Proxima continued playing on auxiliary screens. Hegemony soldiers explored the colony's ruins, collecting samples of human technology and biological specimens. Their commander, a towering reptilian figure in ceremonial armor, delivered a speech that was simultaneously broadcast to millions of alien worlds. "Let this serve as a reminder," the hegemony officer declared while standing among the wreckage. "The galaxy belongs to those with strength. These insects attempted to expand beyond their designated boundaries and have paid the price for their arrogance. Any species that challenges hegemony authority will share this fate." Lee Da-hai's hands trembled with rage as she watched the alien mock the deaths of 10,000 innocent people. The colonists had been teachers, doctors, artists, and children whose only crime was daring to dream of a future among the stars. Now they were being used as props in an alien propaganda broadcast. They recorded everything, reported intelligence. Director Kim Yong-soo, his voice barely controlled. The destruction, the aftermath, even interviews with captured survivors before they were executed. They're treating our people's deaths like entertainment for their empire. The president stood silently for several minutes, processing the implications. Proxima Colony represented far more than a single settlement. It was proof that humanity could survive and thrive beyond Earth, that the species had a future among the stars. The hegemony had not just destroyed a colony, they had attempted to murder humanity's dreams. The activation sequence began at exactly 16-man universal time, Earth standard. Across 12 major star systems, quantum fields that had maintained perfect invisibility for decades suddenly collapsed. What had appeared to be empty space moments before now revealed massive human installations, each one a technological marvel that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about the primitive species from Sol. Above the hegemony homeworld of Korath Prime, a structure the size of a small moon materialized just outside the planet's defensive perimeter. Its crystalline surfaces gleamed with an otherworldly energy that made the planet's most advanced sensors scream warnings. The installation had been watching their capital world for 27 years, recording every military communication and mapping every defensive position. Similar revelations occurred throughout the galaxy. Near the consortium's main trading hub at Vega Station, a human observation post uncloaked within the asteroid belt, its sensors having monitored every commercial transaction for the past 3 decades. The collective's primary mind colony at Altair found themselves under surveillance by a cloaked facility that had been studying their psychic techniques since before most of their current population was born. The technological implications were staggering. Every major galactic power had spent millennia perfecting their detection systems, yet humans had operated sophisticated installations within their most secure territories without triggering a single alarm. The stealth technology alone represented an advancement that could revolutionize warfare. But that was only the beginning. Admiral Cho Hyunwoo stood in the command center of Installation Prime, humanity's largest and most sophisticated observation post. Built into the metallic core of a captured asteroid and hidden within Jupiter's powerful magnetic field, it had served as the nerve center for Earth's galactic intelligence operations. The facility's quantum processors had decoded and analyzed every alien transmission intercepted over the past 3 decades. The Admiral's weathered face showed the strain of decades spent preparing for this moment. He had joined the Galactic Observation Project as a young officer, believing humanity needed to understand their cosmic neighbors before making contact. Now, after witnessing the casual brutality of the Proxima massacre, he realized they had been preparing for war all along. The main display showed live feeds from all 47 human installations as they revealed themselves simultaneously. Each facility was a masterpiece of engineering, combining technologies that shouldn't have been possible according to known galactic science. Quantum cloaking systems that bent light around entire structures, zero-point energy generators that drew power from the vacuum of space itself, and communication arrays that could transmit messages instantaneously across vast distances. "Open all frequencies," Cho commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades watching civilizations rise and fall. "Let every species in the galaxy hear this message." The transmission array activated, broadcasting on every known communication frequency used by the 3 major galactic powers. Emergency channels, military networks, commercial frequencies, even the psychic resonance patterns used by the collective, all carried the same message simultaneously. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Cho began, his words reaching billions of alien minds across hundreds of star systems. "I am Admiral Cho Hyunwoo of the Terran Defense Force. For 30 years, we have watched you divide the stars among yourselves. We learned your languages, studied your tactics, and prepared for this moment. On Korath Prime, the Hegemony's Supreme, Council watched in stunned silence as their monitoring stations tried desperately to understand how humans had achieved such perfect stealth. Their best military scientists had declared such technology impossible, yet the evidence floated before their homeworld like a monument to their ignorance. The Admiral's voice continued, calm and measured, despite the revolutionary nature of his words. "We were content to remain quiet observers, learning from your conflicts while you dismissed us as primitive. We documented your wars, your treaties, your betrayals. We know your strengths and weaknesses better than you know them yourselves." Consortium. Trademasters frantically calculated the economic implications of humanity's technological capabilities. If humans could remain undetected for decades, what other surprises might they possess? The potential for new trade opportunities was staggering, but so was the threat to their established commercial empire. The first impossible report came from the Hegemony's most heavily fortified system at Korath Prime. At urgent 8:30 local time, something appeared directly above the planetary capital, without triggering a single sensor alarm. The object measured 300 meters in length, sleek and graceful, like nothing in any known database. It simply existed where moments before there had been empty space. Captain Yoon Ji-hai stood on the bridge of the TDF Phantom Shadow, watching the Hegemony homeworld rotate beneath her ship. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the massive orbital defense platforms that protected the planet, their weapons systems frantically trying to lock onto her vessel. Every targeting computer showed the same impossible reading. Nothing there. The Phantom Shadow represented the pinnacle of human stealth technology, combining quantum phase manipulation with gravitational field masking. To alien sensors, the ship existed in a state of dimensional flux, technically present but invisible. To any known detection method, even visual observation was difficult, as light bent around the vessel's hull in patterns that confused the eye. "All defense stations are attempting target lock," reported Lieutenant Kim Jae-min from the sensor station. "Their computers can't process our signature. We're showing up as a massive gravitational anomaly, but their weapons can't acquire firing." "Solutions?" Yoon Ji-hai nodded grimly. The hegemony had spent millennia perfecting their military technology, but they had never encountered anything like human quantum stealth systems. Their most advanced sensors were designed to detect conventional matter and energy, not ships that existed partially outside normal space-time. The captain activated her ship's communication array, broadcasting on all frequencies used by the hegemony government. Her message would reach the Supreme Council within seconds, carried by quantum entanglement transmitters that made normal, faster-than-light communication seem prehistoric. "Supreme Council of the Hegemony," she began, her voice carrying across the heavily defended system. "I am Captain Yoon Ji-hai of the Terran Defense Force. You killed 10,000 of our people at Proxima Centauri and broadcast their deaths as entertainment. We demand acknowledgement as equals and full reparations for this war crime. You have 7 standard days to respond appropriately." The transmission ended, and the Phantom Shadow vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. No warp signature, no quantum disturbance, simply a return to empty space that left hegemony sensors registering normal background radiation. The demonstration had lasted exactly 4 minutes, just enough time to deliver the message and prove that humanity could strike at the heart of their empire whenever they chose. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as 12 human vessels simultaneously appeared in critical locations. At Vega Station, the consortium's primary trade hub, another phantom ship materialized inside the station's docking bay. The facility's automated defense systems went haywire, unable to understand how something so large had bypassed every security. Measure. Captain Park Soo-ho delivered his message to the assembled consortium board of directors, who watched through the station's viewing ports as his ship hovered impossibly in their most secure facility. "The consortium has profited from hegemony, brutality for centuries," he announced. "Your silence during the Proxima massacre makes you complicit in genocide. Trade relationships require mutual respect, not exploitation of the weak." The collective faced their own impossible visitation when a human vessel appeared directly above their primary mind colony at Altair. The psychic entities who ruled the system immediately attempted to penetrate the ship's crew with their mental abilities, only to encounter minds completely shielded from their influence. Captain Lee Min-jung felt the alien psychic probes washing harmlessly against her consciousness, blocked by neural implants developed specifically to counter collective abilities. Her crew had trained for years to resist mental intrusion, using meditation techniques combined with technological defenses that made their thoughts invisible to even the most powerful psychic entities. The implications of these demonstrations sent shockwaves through galactic intelligence networks. Not only had humans developed perfect stealth technology, but they possessed countermeasures for every known weapon system and defensive capability. Their ships moved without conventional propulsion, their crews were immune to psychic manipulation, and their very presence challenged everything the established powers thought they knew about physics. The emergency session on Korath Prime lasted 18 hours without break. The hegemony's Supreme Council chamber, a massive dome carved from black volcanic stone, buzzed with frantic activity as military advisors and intelligence analysts tried to make sense of humanity's impossible capabilities. Holographic displays showed the same bewildering footage repeatedly, human ships appearing from nowhere, delivering their ultimatums, and vanishing without trace. High Admiral Vexed Tar paced before the assembled council members, his reptilian features twisted with rage and disbelief. For 3 millennia, the hegemony had ruled through overwhelming force and technological superiority. No species had ever challenged their authority with such casual confidence, and certainly not one they had dismissed as primitive Stone Age savages. 12,000 years of galactic dominance, Vexitar snarled, his clawed hands clenching and unclenching. 12,000 years of proving that strength rules the universe, and now these mammals think they can threaten us with magic tricks and empty demands. The Admiral's aide, Sub-Commander Kralvex, displayed tactical analyses on the main screen. Every military expert in the hegemony had studied the human demonstration, searching for weaknesses or explanations. Their conclusions were uniformly disturbing. The technology appeared to violate fundamental laws of physics, suggesting either revolutionary scientific breakthroughs or something beyond current understanding. Meanwhile, on the consortium's capital, World of New Prosperity, a very different conversation was taking place. The board of directors sat around their platinum conference table, calculating profit margins and trade opportunities with the enthusiasm of merchants who had just discovered a new market full of wealthy customers. Chairman Weltar adjusted his expensive robes and smiled at the assembled executives. "Gentlemen, we're looking at the greatest commercial opportunity in galactic history. These humans possess technology that could revolutionize every industry we control. Imagine the profits from licensing their stealth systems, or the exclusive trading rights to their energy sources." The consortium had built their empire on adaptability and pragmatism. Unlike the hegemony's rigid military hierarchy, they understood that cooperation often proved more profitable than conquest. If humans possessed advanced technology, the logical response was negotiation, not warfare. Director Morkex pulled up market projections showing potential revenue streams from human technology. "Our analysis suggests they've been observing us for decades, which means they understand our economic systems. They're not making demands out of ignorance. They know exactly what they're asking for and how to get it." The collective's response came from the hive mind colonies orbiting Altair, where billions of psychic entities shared thoughts and memories across a vast neural network. Their attempts to penetrate human minds had failed completely, encountering mental shields unlike anything in their 3,000-year history of psychic dominance. Elder Consciousness Zethara communicated directly with the lesser minds that served as the collective's interface with physical reality. Her thoughts rippled through the hive mind like waves across an ocean, carrying confusion and concern to every connected entity. The humans' mental defenses weren't just strong, they were alien in nature, based on principles the collective couldn't understand or counter. Worse, their immunity to psychic manipulation meant traditional methods of control and influence were completely useless. The collective would have to treat with these creatures as equals, a concept that challenged their fundamental worldview. Back on Korath Prime, Vextar's rage had crystallized into military action. The Admiral stood before a holographic display showing the largest battle fleet in hegemony history. 12,000 warships ranging from nimble destroyers to massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets. Each vessel carried weapons designed to sterilize entire worlds, turning the surface into molten glass within hours. "Assemble at Rally Point Omega," Vextar commanded his fleet commanders. "We'll show these upstart mammals what happens when inferior species challenge their betters. One demonstration of proper force will remind the galaxy why the hegemony rules and others serve." What the Admiral didn't know was that every ship in his fleet carried tiny monitoring devices, no larger than dust particles, installed by human infiltration teams over the past 2 decades. These microscopic sensors transmitted real-time data about weapon systems, shield configurations, and tactical plans directly to Earth Command. The hyperspace vortex tore open at the edge of the Sol system like a wound in reality itself. 12,000 hegemony warships poured through the dimensional rift, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed to reduce entire worlds to ash. High Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching Earth's pale blue dot through the tactical display. "Preliminary scans show exactly what our intelligence predicted," reported his tactical officer. "One primitive world, a few orbital installations, and some basic defensive satellites, their largest. Vessels appear to be crude fusion-powered transports. This will be over within the hour." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The humans had made their ultimatum, and now they would learn the price of challenging hegemony authority. His fleet carried enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds, weapons that had crushed civilizations across the galaxy for millennia. Whatever tricks these mammals had used to appear in hegemony space, they couldn't possibly stand against such overwhelming force. The first surprise came when the fleet's long-range sensors began detecting massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt. What had appeared to be empty space or random debris suddenly revealed itself as an interconnected network of defensive installations, each one larger than a hegemony dreadnought and radiating power levels that defied explanation. Captain Song. Hana stood in the command center of Defense Platform Alpha, the largest of humanity's hidden fortresses. Built into a hollowed-out asteroid and disguised for 3 decades, the installation represented the pinnacle of human military engineering. Its weapons systems drew power directly from controlled micro-black holes, channeling forces that could tear apart the fundamental structure of matter itself. Hegemony fleet is advancing in standard formation, reported Lieutenant Bei Su-jin from the tactical station. 12,000 vessels in attack configuration. They're broadcasting surrender. Demands on all frequencies. Song Hana watched the approaching alien fleet with cold professionalism. Every ship's design was familiar from decades of intelligence gathering. She knew their weapon ranges, shield frequencies, and tactical doctrines better than their own commanders. More importantly, she knew their weaknesses. All platforms report ready, announced the communications officer. Earth Command has authorized full defensive response. Rules of engagement are to demonstrate overwhelming superiority while allowing one vessel to escape and carry word back to hegemony space. The Admiral's voice crackled over the quantum communication network from Earth Command. Remember, people, we're not just defending our homeworld today. We're announcing humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. Make sure they understand that we're no longer prey. The hegemony opened fire at maximum range, unleashing a barrage that could have vaporized Earth's moon. Thousands of energy beams and projectile weapons converged on the human defensive positions, each strike carrying enough power to level mountain ranges. The aliens expected to see their targets disintegrate under such overwhelming firepower. Instead, the human installations activated defensive systems that violated everything the hegemony thought they knew about physics. Translucent energy barriers materialized around each platform, not just absorbing the incoming attacks, but somehow capturing and redirecting the energy back toward its source. Song Hana watched in grim satisfaction as the hegemony's own weapons turned against them. The aliens' most powerful plasma cannons found their energy reversed and amplified, striking their own ships with devastating effect. Their kinetic projectiles froze in mid-flight, suspended by gravitational fields that shouldn't have been possible to generate. Impossible, breathed the hegemony tactical officer, as his fleet's opening salvo accomplished nothing but damaging their own vessels. Their shields aren't just deflecting our attacks, they're using our own energy against us. The human counterattack began with surgical precision. Each defensive platform targeted specific hegemony vessels with weapons that seemed to ignore conventional defenses. Energy beams that phased through shields as if they didn't exist, gravitational waves that crushed ships like tin cans, and exotic particles that caused alien hulls to simply cease existing at the molecular level. Vextar watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was systematically dismantled by forces beyond his comprehension. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds were reduced to expanding clouds of debris within minutes. The humans weren't just defeating his fleet, they were demonstrating technological superiority so complete that resistance seemed pointless. The news of the hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than their surviving ships could limp home. Within hours of the Sol system battle, quantum communication networks buzzed with impossible reports. The galaxy's most feared military force had been utterly destroyed by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The single hegemony vessel that escaped carried footage of their fleet's annihilation, proof that the unthinkable had actually happened. On Kepler 442b, the surviving Kalari emerged from their underground hiding places to see something they never thought possible. The hegemony occupation forces were abandoning their posts, their commanders receiving frantic orders to return home immediately. The crystal singers who had hidden their voices for decades began to hum their ancient melodies again, their harmonies rising from ruined cities like prayers of liberation. Similar scenes played out across 300 worlds as the hegemonies. Tributary species realized their oppressors were no longer invincible. The Zenthari rebellion on Wolf 359 seized the orbital mining platforms that had enslaved their people for centuries. The aquatic Mordani declared independence from their underwater colonies, their bioluminescent displays painting entire ocean worlds with celebrations of freedom. Dr. Kang Min-seo stood before the mirror in her temporary quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel TDF Harmony, adjusting the formal robes that marked her new role as humanity's first galactic ambassador. Just 6 months ago, she had been studying alien biology samples in an underground laboratory on Luna. Now she was preparing to address the emergency session of the Galactic Council, a hastily reformed body that represented the shattered remains of the old order. The council chambers on the neutral world of Haven Station had been designed centuries ago to accommodate the 3 major galactic powers and their client species. Today, the seating arrangements reflected a very different reality. The hegemony's delegation consisted of 3 nervous officials who spoke for a rapidly fragmenting empire. The consortium and collective had expanded their representations, trying to fill the power vacuum left by hegemony collapse. Most significantly, dozens of newly independent species had sent delegates for the first time in their histories. Former tributary worlds that had been silent for millennia now demanded seats at the galactic table. The Kalari crystal singers, the Zenthari miners, the Mordani oceanographers, all species that had been reduced to economic resources, now stood as equals in the chambers of power. Ambassador Kang approached the central podium with measured steps, her eyes taking in the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds. Some faces showed curiosity about the mysterious humans who had changed everything overnight. Others displayed fear, uncertainty about what humanity's emergence might mean for their own civilizations. A few showed gratitude, particularly the delegates from former hegemony worlds who owed their freedom to human intervention. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a representative of a species that has spent 3 decades learning about our galactic neighbors. We watched your wars, studied your cultures, and documented your achievements while you dismissed us as primitive savages." The consortium's chief negotiator, Trade Master Velkaran, leaned forward with obvious interest. His people had already submitted formal proposals for technology-sharing agreements, hoping to gain access to human stealth systems and energy manipulation devices. The potential profits from such partnerships were staggering, representing opportunities that could reshape the galactic economy. "We observed your strengths and your weaknesses," Kang continued, her gaze moving across the assembled delegates. "We learned your languages so we could understand your thoughts. We mapped your territories so we could comprehend your ambitions. Most importantly, we identified the flaws in systems built on dominance rather than cooperation." The collective's representative, a pale humanoid whose eyes showed the telltale glow of psychic enhancement, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Helder Consciousness Zethara had personally ordered this delegate to establish contact with humanity, but their complete immunity to psychic influence made traditional collective diplomacy impossible. Ambassador Kang's voice grew stronger as she addressed the heart of the matter. The old galaxy was built on the principle that might makes right, that superior technology justified subjugation of weaker species. Today we offer a different path, partnership based on mutual respect and shared benefit. We have proven we possess the strength to enforce our will, but we choose cooperation over conquest. The Great Assembly Hall on Haven Station had been completely rebuilt to accommodate the new galactic order. Where once 3 massive thrones had dominated the chamber for the hegemony, consortium, and collective, now hundreds of smaller seats formed concentric circles around a central speaking platform. Each seat represented a species that had found its voice in the year since humanity's emergence shattered the old power structures. Ambassador Kang Min-seo walked slowly toward the podium, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The weight of history pressed down on her shoulders as she prepared to deliver humanity's most important speech since first contact. Around her, delegates from across the galaxy waited in respectful silence. Former slaves sat beside their liberators, ancient enemies shared diplomatic protocols, and species that had never known freedom now participated as equals in galactic governance. The Kalari delegation sang softly in their crystal voices, their harmonies creating a backdrop of hope that filled the chamber with ethereal music. Their homeworld had been one of the first to benefit from the new order, its artistic treasures restored, and its people free to explore their creativity without fear. Other liberated species had similar stories of recovery and renewal. One year, Ergo, Ambassador Kang began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the massive hall. 10,000 of our people died at Proxima Centauri, murdered by those who saw them as insects unworthy of consideration. Today I stand before you not seeking revenge, but offering partnership in building something better than what came before. The former hegemony territories had fractured into dozens of independent systems, each one struggling to establish legitimate governments after centuries of military occupation. Some had requested human assistance in writing new constitutions, while others preferred to develop their own democratic traditions. Humanity had honored all such requests, providing advice without demanding control. President Lee Dehai watched, the speech from Earth, surrounded by the same emergency council that had authorized humanity's emergence from the shadows. The decision to end their long silence had cost them the advantage of secrecy, but it had also prevented the galaxy from descending into chaos following the hegemony's collapse. We spent 30 years learning about you while remaining invisible, Kang continued, her words reaching billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. We studied your cultures, your histories, your dreams and fears. We learned that beneath the surface, conflicts and power struggles, most species shared the same basic desires: freedom to live according to their values, security for their families, and hope for a better future. The consortium had adapted quickly to the new reality, transforming from exploiters of tributary worlds into facilitators of legitimate trade between equal partners. Their merchant fleets now carried goods and cultural exchanges rather than tribute and prisoners. Profit margins had actually increased as free societies proved more productive and innovative than enslaved ones. The collective had faced the greatest philosophical challenge, forced to abandon their practice of mental domination in favor of consensual telepathic communication. Many of their subject species had chosen to sever psychic connections entirely, preferring mental independence to collective consciousness. The collective's remaining territories operated under strict protocols governing psychic interaction, with human observers ensuring compliance. Today, we officially join the galactic community, Kang announced, not as conquerors seeking dominion, but as guardians committed to protecting the freedom we have helped to establish. Our strength will serve justice rather than oppression. Our technology will defend the weak rather than exploit them. Throughout the galaxy, in hidden installations that remained invisible to alien sensors, human observers continued their eternal watch. The quantum listening posts orbiting distant stars still intercepted every communication. The cloaked facilities near major worlds still monitored political developments, and the secret bases scattered through unexplored systems still tracked potential threats. Dr. Kim Soo-jin, now promoted to Director of Galactic Intelligence, reviewed status reports from 47 active monitoring stations. The age of quiet observation had officially ended, but humanity's greatest weapon remained their ability to see everything while revealing only what they chose. Knowledge was power, and humans had spent decades accumulating both. The galaxy had learned that humanity's patience was their most dangerous characteristic. While others rushed to expand their territories or demonstrate their strength, humans had waited and planned until the moment was exactly right. Now they stood as guardians of a new order, protectors of freedoms that had been won through careful preparation rather than reckless aggression.